There's a kind of love that never really touches you. It looks like affection, it sounds like commitment, but if you look closely, it's hollow, it's staged, it's conditional, and deep down, you always knew it. They smiled the brightest when your world revolved around them. They texted back the fastest when you started to drift. They were sweetest when they sensed you slipping away. But the moment you were all in, the moment you gave them your heart without hesitation, everything changed. Suddenly they were too busy, too tired, too overwhelmed, too not ready for something serious. You didn't fall for a person, you fell for a performance. They loved being adored. They loved being wanted. They loved knowing someone out there would do anything for them. But they didn't love you, because love doesn't vanish when it's finally safe. Love doesn't get bored when it's finally seen. Love doesn't punish you for giving it freely. What they loved was the mirror you held up to them, the way your admiration made them feel beautiful, desirable, powerful. And when that mirror stopped flattering them, when you became human, not a fantasy, they walked away. Not because you weren't enough, but because your love stopped feeding their ego. This is the kind of heartbreak that feels like madness. You go over every word. You replay every moment. You ask yourself again and again, what changed? But the truth is cruelly simple. Nothing changed. You were just never the destination. You were the stage, the applause, the high. They loved the spotlight. And you just happened to be standing under it with them. In this video, we're going to talk about that kind of love. The one that drains you while making you feel like you should be grateful. The one that teaches you to beg for breadcrumbs. The one that leaves you wondering if you're the problem when all you did was give someone more than they ever deserved. Let's begin. There are people who are never truly in love with you, only with the idea of being adored. They want attention, not intimacy. They want admiration, not vulnerability. They want presence, but not yours, just anyone's. Anyone who will make them feel important, desired, worshipped. You can usually spot them by one simple trait. They only come alive when someone is watching. Their love language isn't touch, words, or acts of service. It's the spotlight. When they post, they want your like. When they speak, they want your reaction. When they look your way, it's not to see you, it's to see how much you see them. At first, it's magnetic. They seem confident, charismatic, even charming. You feel chosen. Out of all the people they could have, they picked you. They flood you with attention, flirtation, promises. They make you feel like the center of the universe. But that's the trick. They don't want you at the center. They want to be the center. And the moment you step forward with genuine love, the moment you offer something deeper than flattery, they recoil because they never planned to meet you at that depth. They never signed up for your truth, your scars, your soul. They just wanted your eyes on them, your energy orbiting them. The minute they sense the dynamic shifting, when it's no longer about them, they lose interest. You might notice how the conversations change. Suddenly, they don't ask how you're really feeling. They start talking more about themselves. They begin to dominate the space, making you feel like a background character in your own relationship. And when you finally stop chasing, when you go quiet, when your heart starts pulling away, they return just enough, just long enough to keep the attention alive, to keep you close enough to orbit them again. It's not love, it's maintenance. They're not rebuilding a connection, they're refueling their supply. And yet you stay, because deep down you remember the version of them who was sweet, soft, attentive. You remember how it felt when they saw you, really saw you. But that wasn't them. That was the mask they wore to secure your attention. That was their best performance. And once the show ended, the actor left the stage, leaving you behind in an empty theater, still clapping. It's hard to admit, because it means the love you felt wasn't mutual. It means the connection you held on to was mostly projection. You were loving the idea of what it could be, while they were loving the reaction of being wanted. And here's the painful part. They will do this to the next person, and the next, and the next, because it was never about you. It was about the reflection of themselves they could see in your eyes. And when your eyes dimmed, when they stopped shining back validation, they moved on to someone else. You are not the first mirror they've shattered. You won't be the last. But here's what you need to remember. This doesn't make you weak. This doesn't make you naive. This makes you real. And the fact that they couldn't hold space for your love says nothing about your worth and everything about their hunger for validation over connection. They never asked, "Can I love you right?" They only asked, "Can you love me more than I love myself?" And when your love failed to fix them, when your attention began to feel like a mirror they didn't like anymore, they left. So the next time someone confuses your presence with praise, pay attention. Because love is not a performance, and you're not an audience. You are not here to clap every time someone turns your affection into a stage. At some point, you stop loving freely. You start calculating. You wonder, did I say too much? Did I compliment them too often? Should I wait longer before texting back? Because slowly, without even realizing it, love has become a stage, and you're trying to read the script that keeps them interested. You're no longer being yourself. You're being whatever version of you gets the most response. And that's what happens when you love someone who craves attention more than connection. They don't just hurt you when they leave. They change you while they stay. You start associating love with effort that never gets returned. You think silence means punishment. You think space means rejection. You think availability means weakness. You become a performer, desperate to hit all the right notes, afraid to be too much, too soft, too real. Because being real is what made them pull away last time, right? So now you're cautious, polished, strategic, not because you're manipulative, but because you're afraid. Afraid that if you just be, they'll lose interest again. Afraid that if you open your heart fully, they'll leave you on red, or worse, respond just enough to keep you from walking away. This is what emotional starvation does to people. It doesn't just make you hungry, it makes you question whether you're even worthy of being fed. And the cruel irony, they often come back when you start healing, when you've gone quiet, when your attention begins to fade, because they can feel when the spotlight isn't on them anymore. They can sense the absence of admiration like a cold room, and they'll return just long enough to relight the fire, to test if your heart still flickers for them, to confirm they still matter. But the moment you give them warmth again, they vanish, because they never came back to love you. They came back to feel loved, to see if they could still control the weather in your world. So now you're stuck, exhausted, resentful, confused. You start questioning yourself. You wonder if you're too emotional, too sensitive, too intense. You wonder why love always feels like walking on glass barefoot, never able to relax, never able to just be. But that's not love. That's emotional manipulation, dressed up in dopamine and half-truths. Real love isn't about strategy. It's not about timing your messages or filtering your honesty. It's not about withholding just enough to keep them interested. Real love is presence. It's someone who doesn't make you perform, who doesn't punish your vulnerability, who doesn't disappear when they finally have your full attention. When someone loves you for you, there's no script, no spotlight, No clapping required. You speak and they listen, not to respond, but to understand. You're quiet and they stay, not because you're entertaining, but because they care. And if you've never had that, if all you've known is people who feed on your affection but starve you of their own, then you've never been loved. You've only ever been used. Not always intentionally, not always maliciously, but used all the same. Used to fill a void they didn't want to face. Used to soothe a wound they never intended to heal. Used to feel important, powerful, adored, for just a little longer. And here you are, still thinking you were the problem. But the truth is, you were just too real for someone playing pretend. You were honest in a world that rewards games. You were ready to build a future with someone who only wanted a moment. So stop rehearsing, stop shrinking, stop editing your love down to bite-sized pieces they can handle. Your love is not a marketing campaign, it's a revolution. And one day someone will look at you, no performance, no spotlight, and they'll stay. Not because they need attention, but because they see you, all of you, and that will finally be enough. When someone only loves the attention you give them, they leave you with a haunting question. Was any of it ever real? And that question can swallow you whole. Because the pain isn't just that they left, it's that they made you believe love meant proving yourself, shrinking yourself, and giving more than you had. You start to forget who you were before you met them. You wonder if you've always been this anxious, this reactive, this unsure. You weren't. They just turned your love into a test you were never meant to pass. And now, long after they're gone, you're still trying to win. Not them, but some invisible sense of worth you lost in the process. This is where the healing begins, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with the decision to no longer make their inability to love you mean anything about your value, because you're not unlovable. You were just trying to be loved by someone who was using love to medicate their own emptiness. You were trying to hold someone who didn't want to be held, just worship. So how do you break the spell? First, you stop asking what you could have done differently, because that question assumes it was ever yours to fix. This wasn't a failed relationship. It was a successful performance. You applauded, gave them the stage, let them take the spotlight, and they never once asked if you were okay standing in the dark. Next, you stop romanticizing their scraps, the breadcrumb texts, the occasional compliments, the fake apologies. You stop turning their bare minimum into emotional gold. You call it what it was: manipulation, attention-seeking, inconsistency. Then, you get honest about the pattern. Was this the first time you loved someone who only took? Or is this a cycle? Because if it is, you have to ask yourself why your love always ends up in the hands of the emotionally unavailable. And here's the quiet truth no one wants to admit. Sometimes we're addicted to that pain, to that emotional chase, to the tiny hits of dopamine we get when they finally text back or say something kind. It feels like relief, like love, but it's not. It's withdrawal, and you're mistaking a chemical crash for heartbreak. Love isn't supposed to feel like anxiety. It's not supposed to make you question your worth every time your phone lights up. It's not supposed to drain you, confuse you, or make you feel small. You've just been taught that this is what love looks like because this is all you've known. But that's not love. That's emotional gambling, and the house always wins. So how do you rebuild? You start by reclaiming what they took from you, your ability to rest in your own presence. You remind yourself, you don't have to perform to be loved. You don't have to be perfect to be wanted. You don't have to disappear to make space for someone else's ego. You start showing up for yourself the way you showed up for them. You validate your own feelings. You hold your own hand. You become the presence you always needed, but never received. And slowly, you stop needing the spotlight. You stop needing to be chosen. You stop needing proof that you're lovable because your existence is already the proof. You realize anyone who needs you to dim your light in order for theirs to shine was never meant to stand next to you. So the next time someone walks in, watch how they act when you give them your full attention. Do they grow with it or get drunk on it? Do they lean in or do they step up onto a stage? Because the right person won't need to be admired. They'll want to be known. They'll ask about your fears, not just your dreams. They'll sit with your silence, not just your praise. They won't run when you stop clapping. They'll reach out and take your hand because they were never performing. They were showing up, just like you. There's a moment after the tears, the silence, the storm, when you stop missing them. Not because you no longer care, but because you finally see it clearly. They didn't love you. They loved the way your love made them feel. And when your love no longer entertained them, they left. That realization doesn't just hurt, it liberates. Because now you know it was never about being enough. It was about being willing to let go of someone who never intended to hold you. So the real question becomes, how do you protect yourself next time? Not by building walls, not by swearing off love, but by learning to see clearly, early. Because people like that, they always reveal themselves. Not in what they say, but in how they behave when the attention fades. You'll notice they only reach out when you're pulling away. You'll see how their energy shifts the moment you stop flattering them. You'll feel the emptiness behind their compliments, like they're saying the words but not feeling the meaning. And the biggest red flag, you'll always feel the need to earn something that should have been given freely. When you find yourself trying to deserve affection, trying to be good enough for someone's presence, trying to win love like a prize. Pause, because real love doesn't dangle itself like a reward. It shows up, it stays, it builds. Even when you're not clapping, even when you're not smiling, even when you're a little bit broken, real love doesn't ask you to audition. It meets you where you are and grows with you. So you want to avoid falling into that trap again? Here's how. 1. Check the balance early. Are you always the one reaching out? Are you the only one asking the deeper questions? Are they more interested in being admired than in knowing you? Love is mutual curiosity, not just you learning them, but them wanting to learn you. 2. Watch for consistency. Words are cheap. Attention-hungry people often come in fast, loud, and overflowing with affection in the beginning. But real love is not about intensity, it's about consistency. Check who they are on the quiet days, the boring days, the days you're not at your best. 3. Trust the silence. If their affection vanishes the moment you stop performing, that's not love leaving. That's illusion evaporating. Let it. Don't chase someone who only clapped when you were on your knees. 4. Heal the part of you that thinks you have to earn love. This is the deepest one, because if you don't fix this wound, you'll keep attracting people who feed on it. You'll keep proving, pleasing, performing. And the truth is, you don't have to do any of that. You are not a stage. You are not a mirror. You are not a spotlight for someone else's ego. You are the room, the whole room. And the right person will feel lucky just to stand in your presence. In the end, the greatest revenge isn't moving on. It's never letting yourself be pulled into that game again. It's seeing the signs, hearing the silence, and walking away early. Because your love isn't cheap, it isn't a tool, it isn't a service, it's a gift. And next time, you won't hand it to someone who only unwraps it when they're lonely. You'll give it to someone who knows how to keep it safe, how to grow it, how to return it. Because now you know what fake love looks like. Now you know how it feels when someone loves the attention, but not you, and you won't forget. You gave your heart to someone who didn't want it. They wanted the glow, the thrill, the feeling of being wanted, without the responsibility of staying when the applause died down. And for a while you thought that meant you were broken. Too much, too intense, too sensitive. You twisted yourself trying to be lovable for someone who only knew how to love attention. But now you're starting to see clearly. You were never too much. You were just with someone who was never ready to hold something real. You showed up bare, honest, willing, and they only wanted a version of you that made them feel bigger. So let them have the spotlight. Let them chase reactions, likes, admiration. Let them perform. You're done clapping for people who vanish when the curtain closes. You're done confusing their inconsistency with passion. You're done begging for the bare minimum from someone who only loved being loved. You don't need to be seen to feel whole. You don't need to be admired to feel valuable. And you don't need to be someone else just to keep someone who was never really there in the first place. The next time love walks in, you'll know what to look for. You'll recognize the signs. You'll feel the difference between someone who wants to be celebrated and someone who wants to build something with you, not in spite of you. And until then, you'll keep your love close, safe, unperformed. Because when the real thing finds you, you won't have to audition. You'll just be able to breathe. No more stages, no more shows, no more shrinking to be clapped for. They love the attention, but now you love your peace more.